Welcome back to askreddit Discover channel. What's the creepiest, most unexplained thing you've seen in broad daylight? When I was a teenager, I was at a friend's house when his parents and family were not home. I was on his back porch tying my shoes, then I went back into his house. Tying my shoes, a 20-second action. No. I walk inside and his entire family is back home and they're sitting at the kitchen table eating dinner and they ask me what I am doing here. They're staring at me like I am crazy and asking why I just walked into their house. I ask for the time, they tell me it is 6:30 p.m. I lost an entire hour doing a 20-second action. To this day I still have no clue what happened or where the time went. I used to experience pretty big lapses of time as a kid to mid-teens. Did some research into what it could have been and I found the term petit mal seizure to describe what happened most accurately. Do a little reading on it, might have been what happened to you too. For me it mostly happened due to stress, but it would freak anyone near me TF out if they'd noticed. Like, I'd be sat there in a class, blink, then I'd have a friend and a teacher shaking my shoulder saying they haven't seen me move in half an hour. I've had similar happen on the bus ride home too. Guy next to me said I went to undo my clip-on tie, froze and didn't move for 15 minutes and just took off my tie. I never have any memory of the time freeze. As far as I knew I just took off my tie. That is so freaky. Same thing happened to my mother-in-law once. She was 4 hours late for work and had no idea why or how. She went to the doctor but they didn't find anything wrong and it hasn't happened since, about 6 years. Dude, you probably had some sort of seizure. I used to have them a lot and never knew when they happened. In my case, I'd freeze in whatever position I was in pre-seizure and just start twitching for a few minutes, and then wake up and continue whatever task I was doing before the seizure as if nothing ever happened. I would have no idea any time had passed or that I even had a seizure in the first place. You should see a neurologist because even if you don't think you're still experiencing this, there's a good chance it's still happening, just during moments where you wouldn't notice such a drastic time skip. I would never have known if it weren't for my parents and teachers noticing. In college I lived on the 11th floor in an apartment with no balcony and it was about 4:30 in the afternoon. I watched a man walk into my apartment about 10 seconds before I walked in, and habitually bolted the door behind me. It locked automatically on the outside. I was living with 3 roommates at the time, so I just figured they were having guests over, no biggie. I put my stuff on the couch and went towards the back bedroom to say hi to whoever came over. My roommates had no idea what I was talking about. It wasn't a big apartment but I searched everywhere. My roommate stayed in the back bedroom sufficiently freaked out. There was no one else in the apartment and the door was still bolted from the inside. He's in the walls. That's Hamper Man. He hides in hampers. I had a similar experience. Saw my ex in my bathroom. Which was odd cause he was in Afghanistan at the time. We were in a fight and not talking, so I assumed he may have came back early and was surprising me. But he didn't say anything and just turned the corner. I went to follow him down the stairs but he had disappeared. I searched the entire apartment so confused. I called my sister in a panic who came over to help me calm down. I got the news that he had passed a few hours later. Crossing at a busy intersection and seeing my perfect double walk towards me. We basically eyes locked until we passed each other. A total mindfuck. Even more disturbing. Instead of stopping and chatting and being amused by the entire biological coincidence, my immediate subconscious reaction was a massive rising internal rage that someone somehow had stolen my face. Very, very weird. Man, I would love to come across my doppelganger. Weird but neat. Once read an article about how there aren't that many different facial features when you consider how many people are alive. So this article claimed it is not only likely there are doppelgangers of all of us right now somewhere on this planet but maybe several. Kinda makes sense when you think about it. I used to live on a farm and one morning there was a full horse leg on our driveway. Like still had part of the hip attached and was fresh. We sprinted down to our horse paddock to find all our horses completely fine. We disposed of the leg and never got an explanation. Very creepy. This happened in Canberra, Australia, so there's no mountain lions or bears around here. One of those huntsman spiders you got over there probably did it. That is so strange. It's the unexplained stuff that is so disturbing. Glad it wasn't one of your horses. That's some godfather sit right there. Oh man, if I owned horses I would have freaked the feck out thinking someone straight up butchered one of them. Woulda been like Jim get ma gun. While this can be explained, the image still creeps me out to this day. It was around the time of planking craze. I had no idea what it was and hadn't heard anything about it. Got a taxi into town and was walking around the city center and life was normal. I then take a turn into the town square and there was around 200 people planking everywhere on everything. I don't know what was going on. I thought there may have been gunshots or a bomb. Or maybe the world was ending. I then asked someone next to me and they explained it and we laughed it off, but for that brief moment of time I'll never forget that uneasy feeling. The fact that the planking era and flash mob era overlapped is vastly underappreciated. Oh shit, the world's ending. Come on Jimmy. We have to quickly get to the town square just like the radio told us and start planking on random thing. Thank you for sharing, this had me cackling. A man with freshly exposed bone on his arm and missing a substantial amount of skin and muscle walked up to me in a parking lot asking me calmly for cigarettes. It really freaked me out, and told him I was calling 911 for him. He immediately ran off and I gave his description to 911. There wasn't much blood but the guy clearly needed immediate medical attention. This was in San Jose on an afternoon about 5 to 6 years ago. Still have that image giving me nightmares to this day. There's a homeless guy that gets sent quite regularly to a hospital in Dallas. Dude has nothing other than bones from calves down. Just skeleton feet. What happened was when the freeze hit a year or so ago, frostbite started taking everything away. He won't let doctors remove them because the local kids pay him like $10 to see it. The smell is so bad the nurses and doctors, from a level 1 trauma center, will gag, puke, even cry because of how awful that stench is. Nothing comes close to describing it. Creepy but explainable. My dad is a paramedic, and one call took him to an SUV that had driven into the river and was being towed out. The car was obviously not working and the 2 guys inside had already passed away. As they're pulling the dead guys out of the car, suddenly all the lights flash on, the windshield wipers start going on full speed, and the car starts blaring the radio at max volume. Freaked everyone right out. My grandpa was a Mountie in Canada, mounted police, and he came across a car that had just crashed and been almost completely submerged in a lake. He rushed over and reached into the open window to see if somebody was inside, and his hand squished into a mass of warm squishy guts. Turns out the person was carrying giant containers of cottage cheese that had spilled. And the driver had left a few minutes prior. He couldn't eat cottage cheese for the next 60 years of his life.